I'm so sorry, you guys. Amanda Plevel again. I tried to do this live and it's just, I don't know, we are just having some issue with Wi-Fi and connection right now. So I'm going to record this as a video. I'm going to just kind of start from the beginning, but it's probably better this way because you can bypass the stuff that you have already heard or that you don't need information on. And so I'm just going to do it as a video. I'll post it, I'll tag you guys in, and then you can watch it as you need to. If you have comments, just either PM me or just put it in the comments and I will get those questions answered. So I am really just hoping to be, because we have this big decision that has to be made and every family's in this position right now. I'm just trying to help be part of that puzzle so that you can have good, accurate information so that you can help make these decisions a little bit easier. While you're trying to make these decisions, I just want to tell you, it's going to be the right one. No matter what you decide to do, it's going to be the right one. And as we've learned already, nothing is set in stone. Everything is changeable. If you don't, if you decide not to do homeschool and you get a year or a month into public school and you're like, oh, what did I do? You can convert it. You can just go back to homeschool and just get started. So I do want to give kudos to, we have a lot of teacher friends and, watching the teachers and parents especially go through trying to adapt to all of this has just been amazing. You guys are remarkable people. So now it just really comes down to what do we need to do for our individual kids and how can we use this as an opportunity? So I'm actually pretty excited about it because this is a way that we can really tailor things to what our kids need and kind of maybe make those changes that our families needed and we weren't able to do before. So if you do watch this video and you want to post into the comments and you want to let me know what your kids' ages and grades are, I can help find more information or give you more information specifically to that age group, or especially the things that you're hoping to get answered through this video. So I'll try to tailor that as much as I possibly can. My background is I was a teacher for 4 years before I had my older boys, and then I went on with my education and became a natural health practitioner, but I have homeschooled our kids and our foster kids and consulted with families doing homeschool almost exclusively that entire time. So I just had a graduate. And so, yeah, it's been 15 years then that I've been working on homeschooling our family and others' families. I definitely don't have all the answers, but I'm, again, hoping to just provide you with some resources and information so that you can make the decisions that you need to for your family. Let's see. There are homeschool benefits. I've seen a lot of them over the years. I think our kids have been able to kind of get a really good, well-rounded, character-oriented education, and I really appreciate that. It may not just be the fear with COVID and the regulation changes and stuff right now, but think of the huge benefits that homeschool brings. We have more time flexibility. Both my husband and I are own our own business, and so this makes it easier for us to flex, when do we do school, when do we work, when are we with our family. We don't have to wear masks. We get to decide on the safety. We get to decide on social distancing. We get to decide on who our kids and our family hang out with. We get to put our values into it. There's a lot of support and resources. Right now, when you feel like there's not much you currently have control over, homeschooling is a great way to stabilize your family. A lot of kids were talking about anxieties before all of this fear COVID stuff happened. And so adding all of that now, kids are feeling really fearful about it. Some talk to you about it and some maybe are acting out and you don't have any idea that that's what they're thinking, but they definitely have thoughts about it. So the benefits of homeschooling is the big one right now is you get to ground into your family and create the kind of safety and non-fear-based environment which your kids are going to learn better in. So something to think about there. We can't do any of the interaction questions, so I'm going to just bypass those. But I'm actually really excited about this because I think that there are opportunities to restructure our school system and to do more for our kids and our families specifically. I think when I'm working in my with my clinic hat on with my natural health people, a big part of it is we're trying to help them find their greatness within. And they've kind of lost their love and their passion along the way, and sometimes that stress brings about a lot of physical issues. And so I think if we can start with our kids, the biggest thing we need to do is help them figure out their skills, their abilities, their unique gifts, and then help them figure out how they could build that into the world, that could be their contribution, not their work, but their contribution, and it makes work life more enjoyable then. So that's the biggest thing we can do with them, even as young people, is to just help them identify their interests and their skills and their natural things that they're really good at. And homeschool is a really good way to do that. So let's get started on the nitty gritty. I know you guys have lives and stuff that you've got to go off and get to. So let's get some of the big questions out of the way. Are you qualified? Yes, you're qualified. If it's your kid and you have an interest in their education, you're qualified. You don't believe how many times I hear people say, I could never homeschool. I don't know what I would do. I'm no good at chemistry. That just doesn't compute in my brain. So there's no way I would help them be able to meet that requirement. Luckily, there are so many resources that you can use. There's consultants like me. There are other homeschooling co-ops. There are people that you can work together with. There's online programming. Even if you do traditional homeschool and not an online program, you could do just the science portion through like an online app. So don't feel like you're not qualified. That is like the least of our worries right now. You are qualified because you love your kids. So that's the biggest thing. College, yes, they can still get into college. They can still have a GPA. They still have an opportunity for scholarships. Do not let that be the thing that sidetracks you. If you have the age of kids right now, and maybe we need to have more of a one-on-one or small group conversation about those kids that are nearing college level. So you have juniors and seniors. We can talk about how do you do that then at homeschool, and when do you graduate them, and how do they get into college. Athletics and extracurricular, yes, they can participate in athletics. They can participate in, you can sign them up just to go to drama. You can sign them up just to go to after school classes, or just for choir, or just go in for band. It is different with each community and with each school district. And I don't know what they're going to allow with COVID. If you're not part of their school system, I don't know if they can legally do this, but they may just say that if you don't comply with their procedures, that you just can't join into any of those activities. I really don't know what they're gonna decide. But traditionally, before all of this happened, yes, you can sign up your student to be part of any of those extra activities. But you know what? Let's restructure it. Let's create what we want. Let's form our own. What extracurricular activities would you like to participate in? Could you get a group of kids that could do that and keep working on their skills? Maybe there's a athletics director or a coach that would be willing to coach your group of kids. I don't know. At this point, I just feel like it's creative, it's open, it's optional. But the best thing to do would be contact your school district, ask if they have a homeschool coordinator, and ask these questions. Once they decide what, I don't think they've decided yet. Once they've decided what's going to happen with school, then they're going to need to decide what are they going to do with homeschooling kids come in. Technically, you as a homeschool traditional family, you are your own school. And so that you have to kind of keep that in mind, because they might have restrictions on what they allow other schools to participate in. But if you are in their school district, yes, they are supposed to allow you to come in and do those extracurricular activities. Social, I really don't think that social skills are kind of a concern anymore, because we've had to isolate, and we've had to quarantine, we've had to restrict all of our social activities anyway. I think people have figured that out, but in the past that has always been a common question is, won't that hinder my child's character growth or their ability to, work things out and figure things out with other kids and grow their self-esteem? Our kids are very social. There's a lot of opportunity to get involved in stuff. Plus, you get to set the stage right now about who you're bringing into their lives. And so I just don't think that social is a huge concern. You can let me know if that is a concern of yours, and we can talk more about options for what you can do and how you can get involved and how you can help your child still develop those social skills. But I can't emphasize this enough. Let's work together and create new standards. There just tends to be right now an explosion of awesome changes happening for homeschool resources, just because of the sheer number of people that are getting into this as what they want to bring in and use for their family. So the number of just cool things that are going to come out for homeschoolers is going to be amazing, because more and more people are focused on it. More and more resources and options are going to be developed. So keep in mind, if you send them back to public school, they're going to be forced, into social distancing. At homeschool, you at least get to decide who they're going to be around. Make small groups, make little play dates, make study groups, make science groups. But don't let social be a reason that you don't look at the option. Is it hard? I think just like anything in life, you can have your hard days, you can have your easy days. We just have determined that this is our option. This is what we're doing. And so it's not even a question on our minds anymore on, is this too hard? Can we keep doing this? It's just what we're doing because it's what works for our family. We like it. Our kids benefit from it. And we really don't want to engage in some of the fears and stuff that we don't want that to distract away from our kids' educations right now. So in this climate, I would ask you, which is harder? You have to get to an intention, and we're going to talk about that real quick here. What is most in alignment with your goals, with your image and your goals? So the first thing that you have to think about is, what is my intention? You have to go into this knowing why you're going into it. It's going to help you make decisions. It'll help you pick the right option. It'll help you pick the right curriculum or the right online school. Are you just trying to do this until public school gets back, into normal? Are you taking this as an opportunity like, hey, we were considering homeschool before, so now this is our opportunity to really put that into our lives and figure this out? Are you doing it because you have some needs? Your kids have some needs. There's dyslexia, there's ADHD, there's behavioral issues, there's special needs, there's bullying. Are your kids having some issues where you have been looking for a different option? So stating your intention first, I think, is really important, because there is a big difference between we want to make a lifestyle out of this and we're just doing whatever we can to get by right now. So it's a big difference. So make sure that you know, because we're going to talk about curriculum next. So you're going to want to know kind of which way you're going. As far as curriculum, there's so many different options. I mean, there's K-12, there's Connections Academy, there's the other online academies, there's textbooks, there's supplemental online programming, there's magazines that you can order textbook off of. You can create your own. In my consulting work with people, I help decipher the child and the family and figure out what works best, and then we develop that plan. So the three kind of major categories that we're going to look at that are the most applicable to right now is distance learning, online learning, and traditional homeschool. So the first one would be distant learning, because this is kind of the hybrid. It's what we've already experienced the last half of this past year, where the school is the public school. They are the teachers. They create the lesson plans, and then they give you the information. They tell you when to be present at different times, when to show up for class, what to do, when to turn things in. So they're still guiding it. You're just doing it not in the classroom. They're talking about doing it that way, or a hybrid version of that, where sometimes you'll be at home, sometimes you'll be in school, sometimes you'll be in home, sometimes you'll be in school. So it's because they don't know necessarily how they're going to end up doing things. I don't know if distance learning is going to be your option, but I just wanted to tell you the difference in distance learning at home is different than an online program. And an online program is different than traditional homeschool. So that's why I wanted to talk about all three of those options. Distance learning is a public school. It's run through your school district, just like you experienced. It's your teachers that now are just turning the curriculum into online so that you have to do it and then send it back to them. You're still following their expectations and their guidelines. You still have to be, have to fill out the immunization forms. You still have, it's someone else's plans. That could be good and bad, depending again on your intention. If you're just trying to get through and you've got the rest of your life you've got to work on, and you need to get your kid through school until school can start back up again and normally, that might be easier for you. If you have questioned it because you're on the other intention, you might want to be more directive of the plans of the education that's being taught. Distance learning could be hard because you have multiple kids, family demands in your house, and now you have this time with this kid, and this time this kid has to be online, and this time this kid has to be online. So it can be tricky that way. You get to stay on track with where the public school is, though. So if you're thinking, I'm only going to do this hopefully for a few months until things get back into working order, and then we're going to send our kids right back in and reintegrate them right back in, you might want to go with their hybrid version of it. Okay. The next one then would be online learning. So these are online learning academies that have the whole curriculum all figured out. You have the teacher, it's a public school, you transfer from, like if you're with your current little community public school right now, you call K-12 or you call Connections Academy and you say, I want to transfer my son, you fill out the forms, they take care of everything from there. It is a public school system, so usually you don't have to pay anything. There are not monthly fees for it. If you want to reintegrate back into public school afterwards, you transfer the records and they do the transferring. So it's easy to transfer back and forth because you aren't the ones that have to fill out the reports and get them to the right people. Some people say it's difficult because I've had some family that I've transitioned out of K-12 and into a different situation with homeschool. Sometimes the fit just isn't right, and I know that some people were really having some difficulty with ones like K-12 because it was hard to be dictated by a schedule and and it's basically like just like public school, you're just doing it from home, and that can be difficult for people. I've heard Connections Academy is a little bit more mainstream, a little easier, a little bit more generalized curriculum, where K-12 can be more higher level academics. And so that was kind of harder for just regular mainstream. And so you have to just look at those options and see if that works for you. When your kids are old enough, it's kind of easy because you've got them signed up with K-12 or Connections or another online academy, and you go to work and you know that they're just doing their work and somebody else is monitoring that. So that might be the fit that you need. My favorite, I just ask you to really like look into that because it's some people's first options into homeschool, and then they have that experience. And if it's a bad experience, then they're done. And you don't realize that there are so many other ways you can do it. So don't give up if you start with one and it just does not work for you. There are other options. Hire a consultant if you need to. Reach out to someone like me to help fit the right program to the right kid. The third method is traditional homeschooling. I happen to think this is probably the best option out there. It's what we use. You can combine multiple strategies with that. We do a lot of our own curriculum. I choose books, but we also do some online programming. So we don't use K-12 or Connections Academy, but we do some online, like we use Time for Learning is a big one. And I recommend that a lot to people because the curriculum is online, the lessons are online. You don't have to design them or develop them. And they're recorded after the child does their work. You can look back and see how well they did on them, where they need to grow, how much time they spent on them. And you can have those reports so that you can keep on encouraging that student, but it's not a teacher that's overseeing all of that. So they can do it whenever they want to. I had asked some of the students that I consulted with, helping their families work through homeschool, what did they like about doing that method? And they loved that they could work ahead if they wanted to. Like they knew that they were going to have a big job that they needed to do. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they just worked really hard and worked ahead. They loved having the flexibility in that, especially as they're getting older. Sometimes some of our kids' personalities, that works out really well for them. So that's what we do. I combine the things that I know that each of my kids needs, and so I gather those materials, but then we also might do some online stuff. So I think it's the most flexible. We can incorporate our family values into this. We can go for a walk or a bike ride and we don't have to worry about being back at 1:00 for the class meeting if we don't want to. This is a good option for when you answered the intention question, if your intention was to tailor it to helping your kid really be successful and succeed through their particular interests and needs and abilities or disabilities, this is a really good option to do that. And you can do it. You are qualified to do it. You might want to hire a consultant to help you set it up and then just let it run from there. This the first thing I would do if you've decided, okay, here's distance learning, here's online learning, I want to look at traditional learning, the first thing I would do is kind of write your own little scope and sequence. So a scope and sequence are essentially the goals or the objectives that a teacher is hoping their child or their student will learn by the end of the year. So you can ask your school district's teachers, you can ask if they would share their scope and sequence. You can say, my son's going into second grade, would you be willing to share your scope and sequence? That's an option. They can certainly say no, but as far as I know, many are very helpful to try and help you be successful with it. So I would kind of create my own scope and sequence then. And so if my son's going into second grade, I would kind of just write down the goals that I'm hoping he learns by the end of the year. You can Google a scope and sequence and just print off one from a different school district. What I did at the end of this year then is, as Dash completed his first grade work, I just wrote down, okay, here's where we still need to work, and I just created a list. So now going into the next year, those are the tops of my goals. I know the things that I want to make sure that we work on. From there, then you can easily pick a curriculum that's going to work the best. So let's say he was behind in English or reading. Well, then I would pick curriculums that are more in alignment with that. Or if I'm just terrible at teaching reading, well, then I have an option that I can look for an online program where somebody else is going to teach it to him at that time. So that's a huge benefit. It's not just textbooks and computers. You know, when you're doing traditional homeschooling, you have the option of creating your own classes. So gardening becomes a life skills or a horticulture class. Cooking becomes life science or home ec. Working on the cars, building things, re-roofing your house, that can be something that fits the family's needs, but at the same time, they get credit as a construction portion of a class. You can create the projects that now become a class that they can earn credit off of. So let your life be the curriculum. Does it take much more time doing it this way than like an online option or distant learning where they're doing the programming? I don't think so, because you are incorporating, like I said, your life. You're trying to teach them from your life the things that could help them in their future, in their own personal lives, but also things that could be credited as credits. And you don't have to get credits just through a course that was designed on an online academy. Time for Learning has the courses, and once they complete that, they have the credit for it. You can get credits through alternatives. You can do PSEO if they're old enough. You can do work studies. You can do internships. You can do quarter-long, semester-long, year-long project curriculum if they're old enough. Some of the younger ones, it's easiest to just do a traditional homeschool because then you get to flow with them. You get to decide. However, if your intention was, I want to reintegrate them back into public school when it's time, or they're just tiny yet, they haven't even entered kindergarten yet, but they would be entering kindergarten this year, and it's, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna be a good idea for us this year, but next year I want them to integrate into first grade. You definitely have to look at what your intention would be. If you're going to have them reintegrate, into the first grade year, then you might want to do an online program where they set the time so that your child has to get used to being up at 6 o'clock to start class at 8 o'clock, to meet with this teacher at 10 o'clock. You might want to do that. In my personal opinion, especially for little ones like that, I still think we need to let them play, and I think we need to let them kind of develop their own schedule and their own interests, and we can work and flow with that. So again, that's just my own personal opinion, but these are all things to think about when you look at your intentions, your values, what your desires are for your student, what they're capable of. Those are all things to think about. Another option, if you're doing traditional homeschool, you can ask, and you want to still reintegrate, you don't have to do the distant learning or the online option. You could, if you want them to reintegrate back into school, so you want to stay on track with them, you can ask the school for use of their textbooks and scope and sequence. If they have any, they don't have to buy more and provide them for you, but if they have extras, many will let you borrow them. So that is another option that you can do too. And if they won't do that, like I said, so next year's teacher, you can ask and just say, we are homeschooling this year. We want to stay on track. Could I take a look at your scope and sequence so that I make sure that we are learning the same things? So that is something to think about too. How do you know which is right? There are so many options. Again, a homeschool consultant can help you figure out for each child what works for each child. There is no such thing as one right way. You know, one might work really well. Connections Academy might work really well for your 6th grader, but maybe not for your 1st grader. We have played with lots of options because we've had lots of different kids coming in through here in our own family. We've just played with options. For example, I have one that is doing a combination of time for learning and workbooks that I have found. So I've kind of pieced together the curriculum towards what he needs to learn and what he's interested in. I have another one that we go and we pick textbooks for the things that he's interested in. We go to a bookstore, he picks out those things, we develop a class around each of those textbooks that he's picked. It helps me to see what his interests are, and then I can find more curriculum that matches that. I have one where he develops a planner of what his intention is for that day, and then I just take a look at it and I kind of approve it. I add things if there's other things that he needs to do, but basically he knows what needs to happen by the end of the year. And so he plans out his days so that he gets to that. I have one that absolutely needed the structure. And so I wrote a planner for him. So every day I would give him a planner and I would say, read this page, do this book, do this textbook. And maybe all you do is you have a textbook for each class. And then, so in science, you're going to do pages 160 to 161. In English, you're going to do pages, 133. I put that in a planner, give it to him, expect him to do that and give it back to me by the end of the day. So it's very helpful to work with somebody who can help you figure out what is needed in your family and with your kids. But again, everything is flexible. Once you try a certain path, if it doesn't work for you, try a different one. It's okay to switch if something's not working out. You can contact homeschool co-ops, homeschool academies, and you could even call some of the curriculum textbook suppliers, and you can ask for last year's editions. They'll often do them at a discounted price. If you go to homeschool co-ops, oftentimes online, people will be selling their old materials. So you want to try a few things out. That's an inexpensive way that you can do that. Okay. I'm going to show you here. So I have just a bin, and in the bin is each student's file. In their files, I have a grades and evaluations, and then I have their scope and sequence file. So for example, for Dash, all I did was at the end of the year, I wrote all of the things that we didn't get to or the things that he was maybe needing more attention on, and I just wrote them just handwritten, starting to develop my own little scope and sequence of what we wanted to work on this year. And then all I do is each week, I pick a couple of those, maybe 4 or 5 of them. I write them on our board. This is our objective board. And then once it's complete, so this is literally, it doesn't have to be anything special. This is last year's. So these were all the objectives that I wanted to do. And then I wrote the dates of when they were completed. So with the little ones, I just spend half an hour to an hour side by side working through it. And it might be something we do on the computer. It might be something that we do in a textbook. And then I have a schedule written out for them. So there are times when it's direct learning. There are times when it's alone learning time. There's times when it's alone play time. There are times when it's fingerboard covered. And so it's in those alone play times that's when I go off and do my work. So I may be here, he may be here. And so my bigger kids, I just give them the planner. They do their business. I check it, and that's about it. That's also how I keep track of attendance. I don't do other work and records for attendance. I keep track of it by their planner. That's my proof right there. And then again, like I said, in another, a live video, if there's interest in that, I can go over the schedule in detail. But that's probably the next question is, schedule. How do we do it? So scheduling, being organized with your schedule, cannot say how important that is. We have a committed schedule, and that, like, it's flexible, but we still kind of do the same thing. So he'll wake up and he'll have his breakfast, which he does on his own. Obviously, the bigger kids do that on their own. And that's when I kind of do my work time, the things that I need to get done to prep for the day, with my job, with my business. And then they'll be having breakfast. They come, and I might have, like with Dash, I have a thing that he gets started with. So it's just like a little handwriting activity. It's something that he can do. Then I come down, we spend a half an hour to an hour together with direct learning. But then I have different like segments and stations in the day. So then let's say we have lunch, for example, and then he spends a little time with myself, my husband, or an older son working on specific other tasks, other school things. And then they have time where there's a learning game cupboard. And so for that half hour, he has to do that. And then he gets to earn a marble. And then there's an art time. And then there's a finger games cupboard. And that may be where I have math manipulatives and whatnot. So I have it's like the stations set out, but then I'm nearby and I'm doing my work. But then he is occupied doing his things. So one of the big questions is, how do I do this when I have to work? And a big part of it is just figuring out the space times so that they can do what they need to do and you can do what you need to do. Okay. The first thing you need to do when you plan your routine then is, what are the things you have to plan around? How many hours do you need to work? What kind of time does that look like? How much time does your school need? How many days a week do you want to do school? I know you do not have to do this 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. If you're going to reintegrate back into school, that might be something you want to consider. But what I had started off doing that years and years ago, but what I learned was, if I'm truly doing this individually for every one of my kids, then I need to really look at how they function and work the best. And I learned with my oldest that he works the best at night. He is like me with that. If I could just stay up all night, I get the best work done. And then I would just sleep a little bit in the morning. And so he ended up, in his later years, finally, after figuring it out, we let him do his work starting at 7 o'clock at night, because that's just when he was on. His grades were better at that time. His brain just worked better. And it opened up as he was older then, because there's the option to work during the day, which you can get credits for doing internships or work study. So don't limit yourself into thinking that it just has to be done, in this one small way. I know people that homeschool over the weekends so that they can go to work during the week. So there's definitely options that you can, again, a homeschool consultant can help you figure that out. Time frame is very different. We typically do homeschool 9 to noon, and then we have like unstructured activities so that they can stay occupied. If they're having a hard time staying occupied, then I can say, did you do your finger games? Did you do your manipulatives? Did you do this or that? But generally, like, Dash has gotten really good at just going up and occupying himself with his own interests. But especially when I was a teacher and when I started doing homeschool with my kids, I paid attention to how much time was actually dedicated learning time in the classroom. And it averaged out to be about 3 hours a day. When you're at home, you're not dealing with the distractions. You're not dealing with kids that have to get back on behavior. You're not dealing with all of the what do you call them? Just the meetings and the events and the things that are happening at school that take you away from the classroom. And so don't think that your day of school has to be, 8 hours. We do ours from 9 to noon. And then I give them special projects and stuff that they can do in the afternoon. But basically, they're getting their grad curriculum taken care of in those 3 hours. And every kid's different. So you have to work with that. If there's more interest in this, just comment after this video and let me know that there's more interest, and we can go into detail. How do you do things like scheduling? What does that look like? How do you plan your curriculum? How do you plan your lesson plans? What do you do at the end of each week to prepare for the next week? We can go over all of that. But again, it's just like anything else, getting into a flow. there's not a lot that's required of you as a homeschooling parent. So don't be scared of, I don't know if I would be doing everything the right way. I don't know if I would be legal. I don't know what I need to do. You keep track of your grades and you keep them in your own files. Some districts ask you to turn in a grade report at the end of the quarter. Many do not. You have to prove your attendance, which we do through planners, so it makes it super easy. You can have just a monthly calendar that you write the hours that you did homeschool. We do quarterly grading just to see, where they're at. It's not necessarily grading, it's just to see how far have they come towards their goal. What else can we do to keep shifting them closer to their goal? It's not like A, B, C, D. We look at progress rather than grading. But you don't typically have to turn those in to somebody. You turn in a form at the beginning of the year, the intention to homeschool or the intention to continue homeschool. You file that with your school district. That's pretty much the major reporting that you need to do. And then you need to do a testing requirement each year. And you need to let your homeschool coordinator what test you plan on doing with that. So it is not confusing figuring out the paperwork. That is definitely a detail that you can figure out with your homeschool consultant to help plan for that. Okay, but don't think that it's so much paperwork that you're just not going to be able to get through it. What I did was I set up a group called Einstein's Fish. If you've known that quote, if you try to, I don't, and it's right on the tip of my tongue and I don't even remember it, but something about it, a fish would feel really stupid if you're trying to teach a fish how to climb a tree or something like that. You'll have to look it up. Look up Einstein's quote about the fish. But I created a group called Einstein's Fish on Facebook, and I'm just going to post resources, the link to the intent to homeschool form. So all you have to do is print that off and then turn that in. So if you want to get started, literally the first thing you need to do is print off that form. You can Google it too, Intention to Homeschool, Minnesota. Print it off, fill it out, keep a copy for yourself, send it in to your school district. And then after that, it's deciding what your intention is so that you can choose curriculum. Once you've chosen your curriculum, figure out how your routine is going to be, okay? What your schedule will be. Working with the school district, definitely you need to keep an open communication with them. Again, call and ask if they have a homeschool coordinator that will tell you, are there certain requirements or things that you're expecting of me? So you can work with them right from the get-go. And some are very open. Some school districts are very open to helping their homeschool families. Some of them are very willing to let you come in and take a class here and there. Again, you just have to, you need to know that some districts are not super happy about being able to accept your student from a different school to come to things like proms or dances. So you need, if those things are valuable and important to your student, you need to work it out with the homeschool coordinator and what the expectations are. And that's going to be a huge deciding factor for you. Okay. I think instead of talking about getting started, let's talk about how do you do this and work? Because it would be easier for me to tailor this if I knew if many of you were working at home or if you're working outside of the home. Either way, where there's a will, there's a way. And so there's lots of ways to work it out. You can do as I do. Like I said, I work from home, and then I have dedicated times where they are doing occupied things that allow me to go and do the things that I need to do. And we're right nearby and I'm there to help. But like I have a special time. So my sons get to watch TV or do an online activity or be on a screen. It's screen time at 11 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. So I know that those are times that I can go and do and make phone calls if I need to, or do a video if I need to. And then I also know that they're not spending all day on TV, and we're not arguing about being able to be on screens or play games, because they know 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock are their times. So we just have a schedule set up. And so I know when to schedule people that I need to consult with, and I know when they're going to be busy and that I'm able to do that. You can share time with your spouse. We divided it up. So now my husband works 3 days, I work 2 days. And so I take the lead on family when he's at work, and he takes the lead when I'm at work. Otherwise, we've set it up to be able to work from home. Use your resources. There are homeschooled teens, and so they can get credit for their homeschool education by doing some child development with your homeschooled son. So I was consulting with a young girl who wanted to be a teacher. And so we worked it out where the next door neighbor was also homeschooling and had younger kids. And so she needed to go off to work. So this homeschool teenager would go over there, take care of her kids during the day. And part of her lessons were to design some games, design some curriculum for that particular age group. And that was part of her homework with that. But everybody's needs got met. And so you might just have to think outside of the box. Again, if you work with a consultant, they can help you figure these strategies out. So hundreds of homeschool families have asked the same question: how am I going to be able to provide for my family, provide an income, and still, meet the demands of my job? But there are lots and lots of options. We just have to figure out what it is exactly that's stopping you. You can let others do the teaching. Let's say you have a group in your neighborhood, and this mom is really good with science. This mom's really good with baking. This mom's really good with math. You can work it out so all of you could work, but the time, 2 hours, then your kids will be gone. Science at Mary's house, math at Joe's house. You have 2 hours now in which you can do your work or go into the office or whatever you need to do. So again, it really kind of depends on what your work demands are, but that's something that a consultant can help you work on. Costs. We spend about $270 a year. If we want to go and buy a bunch of, we took my middle son last year to just go, and he just really didn't know what he had interest in. And he's getting towards the end of his school career now, where we wanted to help him focus on things that he was interested in. So we did. We took him to a bookstore and we let him just pick 12 books. And so that cost, a couple hundred extra that we don't normally put out, but that's still less than $500 for a year with all 3 of our homeschool students. So there are 3 states that allow for tax breaks. So keep that in mind: Minnesota, Illinois, and Louisiana. And so keep your receipts, keep any testing fees. We pay $55 for a test, and that gets reimbursed back to us. So keep any receipts from any curriculum that you buy or online programming that you decide to employ. We do a special math one, and so we pay monthly to have that service. And so keep track of all of those things and talk with your accountant on what you can use as tax breaks. But Minnesota is one of those states that allow you to do that. Yes, you can homeschool if you have special needs students. We had one go all the way through with dyslexia, and so it was an opportunity to learn a different way to teach reading and spelling, which was absolutely awesome. But there are options for that too. So again, if that's your need, that's something that we can talk about more directly or in a small group. But don't let that be a reason why you don't homeschool. In the Einstein's Fish group, I'm going to be posting resources. So there are lots of things out there. There's book clubs, there's book subscriptions, there's Tinker Crate, there's Bitsbox, where it's coding. It's a coding subscription that they get every month. Get Mightier is something that helps kids to calm down if they're feeling anxiety or they're getting stressed and frustrated. So there's lots of resources that you can make use of to help make homeschooling easier. There's I posted a bunch of them already today. There's one called homeschoolhideout.com has found 150 educational shows on Netflix. So if you're feeling like you need to have some options there, there's educational companies that are offering free things. So I posted that link as well. There's virtual field trips. So Einstein's Fish is going to have a lot of, it's just a group for us to support each other and share resources. So check that out as well. I have lots and lots and lots of tips for resources. Lots of tips. What do you do on hard days? What do you do during the stressful days? What do you do when you feel like giving up and you feel frustrated? That happens more so, I would say, in the beginning as you're figuring things out. But it is worth it to work through them, and there are lots of resources to be able to do that. And lastly, because I work as a natural health practitioner, I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that this is a huge opportunity for you to create health for your student, because they can be more involved in their caretaking, in their personal care, in their meal creation. You can be teaching them about health. You can be teaching them about meals. You can feed them better. Sugar and dyes are a huge focus issue, and they do get a lot of that through, you know, all of the snacks and birthdays and lunches and stuff in public school. So unfortunately, that's something that you don't have a lot of control over, that you do have a lot of control over at home. For example, it's known that ADHD is really, really interactive negatively with red dye. So take this as an opportunity to get your students' health situated, get their nutrition situated. There's focus vitamins, homeopathics, that can help to create a more balanced brain, stable environment. So I guess I would say that would be probably the biggest benefit in my eyes, because food is a big deal to me, and how their health stems from the food they eat is a big deal. And so this is an opportunity where you can do a lot towards their own personal care and health habits. Lastly, everybody, so if you are interested, I'm here to help. We have, you know, there's other people that have posted on here saying that they would be willing to help too. I would say put it in the comments below, or on the Einstein's Fish group. Just say, this is who I am. I would be willing to, I have kids this age. I would be willing to get together. I would be willing to teach, you know, crochet. I would be willing to teach math. Reach out to each other. There's a lot of people that help. If you do want to take advantage of consulting help, I do help with families. So it is a paid service to do that, but I'm open to talking to you and helping make this as smooth and easy as is possible, and works really good for your students, because I just would love to see all of our students feeling great about who they are and what they have to offer the world, and like that they're not that there aren't any deficits to them. And that's one of the big benefits to homeschooling, is they don't need to have anxiety about feeling deficient. They are unique and beautiful in their own individual selves, and that's our job, is to help them really develop that. So let's be kind. Every family is trying to make this decision right now. And so even if it's a decision that you think is not right, just understand it was hard for them to make this decision, just like it's hard for you to make this decision. And so no matter what anybody else chooses and you hear them talking about it, just say, that's great. I'm excited for you. I know that was a hard decision to make. You don't have to put your input on it. This is hard on everybody. So be there if people need you. I'll be here if you need me. Join me in the Einstein's Fish group, and we will talk more about how to make this easy. Okay, thanks guys.